Sometimes, the most powerful moments in life don't come from wealth or status, but from a simple act of compassion. That night, a frightened boy found more than a meal. He found a home. And an old widow found more than a guest. She found family. Together, they proved that forgiveness can heal, and kindness can transform even the hardest hearts. If this story moved you, please like this video, subscribe to From Shadows to Light, and share it with someone who needs to be reminded that goodness still exists. Because every time you do, you help someone else believe in second chances and in the power of love to change a life. A thin young man pressed himself against the side of the dark house, heart pounding. The quiet suburban street was still. Most lights were out at this late hour. Holding his breath, he carefully pried open a window. Just get in, grab something valuable, get out, he told himself. His stomach gave a painful growl. He hadn't eaten a proper meal in days, and hunger was driving him to do this. He knew an old woman lived here alone. Old people don't fight back, he thought, pushing aside a twinge of guilt as he slid through the half-open window into the house. Inside, the living room was dim and silent, save for the faint tick of a clock and the hum of the refrigerator. She must be asleep, he thought, creeping forward on soft soles. The place smelled of lavender and something like roast chicken, a scent that made his empty stomach ache even more. In the gloom, he could make out modest furniture and shelves of knickknacks. Careful not to bump anything, he began opening a small drawer in an end table, rifling for cash or jewelry. Suddenly, a floorboard creaked behind him. He froze. Light flooded the room as a lamp clicked on. Whirling around, he found an elderly woman standing in the hallway doorway, her hand on the switch. She was petite and silver-haired, wearing a knitted cardigan over her nightgown. Instead of screaming or looking terrified, she simply gazed at him with calm, curious eyes. Every muscle in the young man's body tensed. His right hand drifted towards the pocket knife in his jacket, though he didn't draw it. "Stay back," he stammered, trying to sound threatening. His voice came out small, cracked with nerves. He had expected panic or anger from her, maybe shouts about calling the police. But the old woman did not yell or retreat. She peered at his thin face, his dirty clothes, and his trembling stance. What she said next took him completely by surprise. "You must be hungry," she said softly. "Why not come into the kitchen and have some dinner?" He blinked, wondering if he'd heard her right. Dinner? His mind reeled. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. He was prepared for fear, pleading, even threats. Certainly not an invitation to eat. Was it a trick? He took a half step back, eyeing her warily. "What?" he managed, unable to hide the confusion in his voice. The woman's lined face remained gentle. "I thought you might be hungry," she repeated. "I was about to have supper. There's plenty of stew on the stove. Come, eat with me. I won't call anyone, I promise." He stood there in shock, his stomach twisted with hunger at the mention of stew, but his legs felt rooted to the carpet. This had to be some kind of trap. Why would she invite a stranger, an intruder, to her table? His eyes darted around, expecting an ambush, but the house was quiet. The only sound was the tick of that clock and the old woman's steady breathing as she waited for his answer. To his amazement, the woman actually turned her back and began walking toward the kitchen, beckoning him to follow. She showed no fear that he might harm her or flee. It's all right. Come along, she encouraged in a warm tone, his heart hammered. He could still make a run for it, but the promise of food and the strange gentleness of her invitation tugged at him. After a moment's hesitation, the young man found himself creeping warily down the hall toward the kitchen. The kitchen was cozy and lit by a single overhead lamp. He hovered uncertainly in the doorway as the old woman moved about. On the small wooden table was a single place setting, a bowl and plate, as if she'd been about to dine alone. She lifted a pot lid on the stove, and the rich aroma of beef stew filled the room, making his mouth water. With a faint smile, she took another bowl from a cupboard and began setting a second place at the table. "Have a seat, dear," she said, pulling out a chair. Still on edge, he slowly approached and lowered himself onto it, ready to bolt at the slightest hint of danger. Up close now, he could see the woman more clearly. Her face was creased with age, and a thin gold wedding band glinted on her finger. A framed photo on the counter showed a much younger version of her with a smiling man, her late husband, he guessed. Realizing she truly lived here all by herself, a pang of guilt went through him. I was about to rob a lonely old widow, he thought, shame weighing on him. The old woman returned to the stove and brought the pot over. She ladled hot stew into his bowl first, then her own. Chunks of meat, potato, and carrot swam in a savory broth. The steam carried a heavenly scent. The young man suddenly realized how faint he felt from hunger. His hands trembled slightly as he picked up his spoon. "Go on, eat while it's hot," she urged gently. He needed no further prodding. He dipped the spoon and brought it to his lips. The broth was rich and flavorful. It burned his tongue a bit, but he didn't care. He gulped down one spoonful, then another. Warmth spread through his belly. A low, involuntary groan of pleasure escaped him. It was the first real food he'd tasted in ages that wasn't scavenged or from a can. Before he knew it, he had devoured half the bowl. The woman watched him with a smile, eating at a slower pace herself. "There you go. I figured you were hungry," she said. She took a few spoonfuls from her own bowl and then added almost conversationally, "This stew is my special recipe. My husband used to say he could smell it from the driveway and know he was home." Her eyes flicked to the photo on the counter, and for a moment, a wistful look passed over her face. The young man slowed down, realizing he'd been practically inhaling the food. He hadn't expected to feel so comfortable. The warm kitchen, the home-cooked meal, and the gentle presence of this stranger were easing the fear that had knotted his stomach. He swallowed and forced himself to speak. "Why are you doing this?" he asked quietly, not meeting her eyes. "I broke into your home. I was going to steal from you." The old woman set down her spoon. "Because I can see you're not a bad person, just a desperate one," she answered. "Everyone does things they regret when they're hungry or scared. I don't approve of you breaking in, but I'm not about to turn you out or call the police. You're just a boy trying to survive, aren't you?" She sighed softly, then continued, "It's dangerous what you're doing, breaking into houses. You could get hurt, or worse. I wouldn't have slept tonight knowing you were back out on the streets, hungry." He finally looked up at her, disbelief in his eyes. "You're not afraid of me," he muttered. He was a stranger, young and rough around the edges, and she was old and alone. She had every reason to be afraid. She gave a small shrug and a warm, kind smile. Maybe I should be, but no, I'm not. At my age, I trust my instincts, and my gut tells me you won't hurt me. She tilted her head, studying him. I suspect you've just lost your way, that's all. Lost my way, he echoed softly. The words hit him like a blow. He lowered his gaze back to the stew. For a moment, the only sounds were the clink of his spoon and the hum of the refrigerator. He managed a few more bites, but his appetite was fading as a lump rose in his throat. You look very young, she said after a quiet stretch. How old are you, dear? 17, he answered in a small voice. A sad look flickered in her eyes. 17. You should be in school, with friends, thinking about the future. Not out here alone, doing this. A flash of anger and shame crossed his face. He pushed his bowl away slightly. It's not like I chose this, he mumbled defensively. I know, she said, her voice full of understanding. Those two simple words broke something in him. All the fight and pride that had been holding him together crumpled. Before he knew it, he was speaking in a rush, his voice trembling. My parents died when I was little, he found himself confessing. I bounced between foster homes. The last place. It was awful. He gave a humorless half laugh. I ran away a couple years ago. Living on the streets was hard, but it felt safer than staying there. Still, it's been so hard. I'm so tired of being hungry and scared and alone. His voice trailed off as it cracked, and he realized tears were blurring his vision. He clenched his jaw, trying not to cry. But the tears came anyway, hot and unwelcome. He dashed them away with the back of his hand, anger and despair twisting inside him. I'm sorry, he choked out. I never wanted to steal. I didn't know what else to do. His shoulders shook as a sob fought its way up. I'm just so tired. In an instant, the old woman was by his side. She laid a gentle hand on his arm. Oh, you poor boy, she whispered. That simple kindness undid him completely. The young man turned and collapsed against her, his face pressed into her shoulder as the sobs broke free. Years' worth of frustration and fear poured out of him in heaving cries. The woman wrapped her arms around his skinny frame, stroking his hair as if comforting a child. There, she murmured. Let it out. You're safe here. He didn't know how long he cried, but finally the sobs subsided. He drew back, flushing with embarrassment. The old woman pressed a clean dish towel into his hand, and he wiped his wet face. Thank you, he mumbled, blowing his nose. She moved back to her chair, keeping her eyes on him. Both of them were quiet for a moment, the only sound a quiet sniffle from him. At last, she spoke. You did a wrong thing by coming in here tonight, she said gently. But I can see you regret it, and I forgive you. He stared at her, almost incredulous. She forgave him that easily. You have your whole life ahead of you, she continued. It's too early to give up on yourself. If you're willing, I want to help you, not just with a meal tonight, but with a safe place to stay and a chance to get back on your feet. His eyes widened. He had expected her kindness to extend maybe to food and a night's rest, but a place to stay? You mean it? He breathed. Why would you do that for me? You don't even know me." "Because someone ought to," she said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. She patted his hand, which was still clutching the towel. "I have a roof over my head, food on the table, and a little money saved. I can't in good conscience send you back out there to sleep under a bridge somewhere. And, well," she gave a self-conscious chuckle, "I've been lonely. My husband passed on, and my only daughter lives across the country. It's just me here. I wouldn't mind some company around the house." He bit his lip, trying to process the offer. No one had ever offered him anything like this. It felt like a dream or a trick. I don't want to be a burden to you," he said, voice unsteady. Are you sure? Is there a catch?" She shook her head. "No catch. We'll simply help each other. You can stay here for a while. We'll get you back in school or help you find a job. In return, you can help me with chores and indulge a lonely old lady by being here. How does that sound?" Hope, unfamiliar and warm, fluttered in his chest. It sounds more than fair," he managed. A tentative smile crept onto his face. "I promise I won't waste this chance. I'll do my best. Thank you. Thank you so much." Her face lit up with relief and happiness. "Oh, you wonderful boy." She squeezed his hand. "You won't regret it. Now, let's get you settled in for the night. We'll have a big day tomorrow." That night, true to her word, the old woman made up the sofa with sheets and a soft knitted blanket. She wouldn't hear of him leaving, not even to retrieve his meager belongings from wherever he'd stashed them. Instead, she found him a spare toothbrush and insisted he take a hot shower. She gave him a set of her late husband's pajamas. They hung loose on his thin frame, but they were clean and warm. As the house finally grew quiet, the young man lay on the couch, wrapped in the blanket. His belly was full and warm for the first time in ages, and he was clean and dry. In the silence, he stared up at the dark ceiling, trying to convince himself that this wasn't some cruel illusion he'd wake up from. He saw the silhouette of the old woman's rocking chair across the room, and remembered how she'd hugged him, how she'd called him a wonderful boy, and forgiven him. He felt a strange tightness in his chest, a mix of gratitude, relief, and disbelief. She believes in me, he thought. I can't let her down. More importantly, I can't let myself down. For the first time in years, he felt like he wasn't alone. A faint smile tugged at his lips. Wrapped in a grandmotherly blanket that smelled of lavender, he closed his eyes. That night, he slept deeper and more peacefully than he could ever remember. True to her word, the old woman set about helping him rebuild his life. In the days that followed, she contacted a local youth outreach program and helped enroll him back in school. She took him shopping for a few changes of clothes and made sure he ate 3 solid meals a day. The young man, no longer a nameless thief but a teenager with hope, moved into her small, spare bedroom. At first, he could hardly believe he had his own bed, a clean pillow, and someone who greeted him each morning with a cheerful, "Good morning." He worked hard to catch up in his classes and assisted her around the house in the evenings. With each passing week, he grew a bit stronger and more confident, and the old woman, whose home had been so quiet and empty, now echoed with life. She taught him how to bake bread, and he taught her how to use the internet on her phone. Laughter and conversation began to fill the spaces that had once been silent for them both. Over the months that followed, they became as close as any grandmother and grandson. He would rush home after school with stories about his day, and she would listen with bright eyes and a proud smile. In the evenings, they ate dinner together at that same small kitchen table, grateful for the chance to share a meal and talk about their lives. One night, as they finished a dessert she had made, the young man looked at the woman who had taken him in and said softly, "Thank you for everything, Grandma." The words slipped out naturally. The old woman's eyes brimmed with tears of joy as she reached over to squeeze his hand. In that moment, both of them understood that they had become family.
And to think, it all began with 4 gentle words spoken on a desperate night. You must be hungry. Sometimes the most powerful moments in life don't come from wealth or status, but from a simple act of compassion. That night, a frightened boy found more than a meal. He found a home. And an old widow found more than a guest. She found family. Together, they proved that forgiveness can heal, and kindness can transform even the hardest hearts. If this story moved you, please like this video, subscribe to From Shadows to Light, and share it with someone who needs to be reminded that goodness still exists. Because every time you do, you help someone else believe in second chances and in the power of love to change a life.